Tong. Tonight we are broadcasting from the lands of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations.
We recognise that sovereignty was never ceded and treaties were never reached.
We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any First Nations people who may be tuning in tonight.
Welcome! Welcome!
Welcome.
Welcome to the most highly anticipated debate of the year, brought to you by the usual instigator of hot button pot stirring,
Stir potting discourse, the Wheeler Centre. Tonight we bring you the big question of 2020.
when will we get a fucking vaccine?
Just kidding. Tonight we're here to talk about cancel culture.
Yes, cancel culture. The predominantly online practice of ostracizing,
Abandoning,
deleting,
banning,
or cancelling people for hurting or marginalising people who have been hurt or marginalised their entire life.
unless we didn't like them in the first place, in which case we don't need to cancel
Yeah,
them.
cool.
Oh, sorry. No, Wheeler Centre. Hello? Yeah, we're doing the... Oh, I see. So as it turns out, the event is not about cancel culture, it's actually about cancelling culture.
That actually makes
sorry,
a
I
lot
didn't
more
read the event
sense.
description, so yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Love you, bye Dad.
Well, folks, tonight's event isn't about cancel culture. It's actually about cancelling culture. Like all good debates, our debatees will be asking the hard-hitting questions.
Like the chicken,
Or the egg.
to be
Or not to be.
Messina,
Or Peter Pippo.
and Sync.
Or Backstreet Boys.
Is that dress blue and black?
Or white and gold.
Thin crust?
Or cheesy crust.
Are we funny?
Or have we been in stage 4 lockdown for far too long?
Funny.
Stage 4. Our lineup tonight does not answer any of these questions, but they will help us get to the bottom of whether the problem with culture is just culture itself.
Now, not to be a biased debate host and or moderator who's not going to appear again until the end of the event, but I think it's pretty self-evident.
Pretty clear, yeah.
If you just think about it, then it's pretty obvious that we should just
Not
cancel
cancel
culture. No, but if you follow it rationally, into like just through
Yeah,
the
we
through
should just
line, we should just
not
cancel culture.
We'll let you decide.
No, that's not
How a debate works. We'll come
We
back at the
have
end.
to- yeah.
Please welcome arguing for and or
against.
against. Wait, is it for and or
Oh,
against?
I don't know who's first.
I know.
Please welcome
the
fight number
contestants.
1.
Alright. Now, like I said, I'm not editing this. You're not paying me enough. So when I clap, we cut in. When I clap again, we cut out. Alright? And I don't want to be made out to be some sort of monster. Alright? You gave me this assignment. I'm not a monster. Put a laugh track on it. I don't know. Anyway, I'll click on this free auto cue service and we'll go. Hello. I'm living legend and amateur calligrapher Ash Flanders. But since I'm here to cancel culture, please address me by my true title of High Canceller. And no, I'm not some fascist right-wing toad. Let me start by saying I think we're framing the culture war entirely wrong. Because it's not a war between two factions invested in their own rich and thriving cultures. The culture war is actually a squabble between two lost children, fighting over who gets to take home the ashes of a thing that died a long time ago. Because culture is already dead. Yeah, I went there. But as I'm sure you know, being dead doesn't prohibit you from being cancelled, and nor should it, Mother Teresa. So, I'm asking you to join me in raising a stake so we can finally put this undead abomination to rest. Culture, not Mother Teresa. We still don't know how to defeat her. Office culture, beach culture, gym culture. There's a lot of reasons to hate culture. It restricts us, it binds us to each other. Culture is a prison the inmates build themselves. It's one long conversation. And who's ever enjoyed that? You know, I know if I take a project to a theatre company and they end the meeting by saying, let's keep this conversation going. It's a very polite, some would say cultured way of telling me to go fuck myself. Now, I should love culture. Most of it was made for me. As a child, I was sent to an elite private school to raise my cultural value. I wore my first suit to kindergarten. I played the cello, sung hymns, and did Saturday morning sports. I was forced to learn Latin at 12. Nothing like a dead language in a fresh mouth. I was told Latin would be useful in either of my possible futures, of lawyer or doctor. But the truth was I was being taught Latin for the same reason my classmates were still getting the cane in 1992. Tradition. Culture's most insidious weapon. You see, if tradition had a slogan, it would be, change stops here. It's shocking how much of it still controls the world and what we see as culture. Exempla gratia, that's Latin, for example. One night I went to experience my father's culture in a gentleman's club. It was a father-son dinner, and I only went because my gay lover wanted to attend and because I wanted to give the old boys a bit of a razz. The club prided itself on its cheeky members. Picture the little rascals, only with engorged prostates, Shiraz teeth, and instead of mischief, they got up to a bit of cheeky, white-collar crime. The men were brought together by their love of, you guessed it, culture. And not just their own, as shown by the wall of Micronesian artefacts that surrounded us. That clearly made more sense off of Collins Street than on some messy island. It was strange to see my father in this place, surrounded by his peers and their sons. I thought he might be returning me in order to get what he'd actually asked for. Because in this cultural club, there were no real artists. I mean, that's a lie. There was one other artistic son in the mix. He was named something charming like Preston or Sturgeon. And he was so cultured, he actually made his living by creating reproductions of antiques that could also function as modular furniture. Because don't you find, Acid, it's just so impossible to find good quality antiques that make sense in a modern apartment? That's what he said to me between mouthfuls of duck liver. And just then he was tapped on the shoulder. Oh, I guess that's me. I'm playing piano for everyone tonight. I hope you like ragtime. It's all I play. And isn't a young man playing ragtime in a room full of Micronesian artifacts a perfect representation for culture these days? We rub a bunch of dead references together and hope to spark something. Like Preston's business of new antiques, culture is now a poor reproduction of something that made actual sense a long time ago. See, I think culture should be a living thing, led by the femme tops of the cultural food chain, the artists. But the problem is, everyone's an artist now. When culture was at its peak, the agreed apex of culture, which is the 90s, there were only 3 legitimate types of artist. Visual, like at a gallery, performance, like at a theatre, or sandwich, like at a subway. But now everything is an art form. In 2020, if someone says they're a landscape artist, they might actually have a mower in the back of their ute. They might actually work. Do you want to live in a world like that? See, a surgeon is not an artist. A surgeon's role in the arts is to sit on boards and come to opening night and have pre-drinks in the Colgate lounge. Because if everyone is an artist, who's the audience? Other artists? Gross. Again, I don't want to sound like a toad, but that's the worst audience I can possibly imagine. A culture requires a conversation to be happening, and is that even possible nowadays? When everyone can follow their own cultural interests down ever-expanding internet wormholes, what do we have in common to talk about? We're streaming in very different streams. Your t-shirt might reference a podcast that I've never heard of and no one else has heard. Maybe the only films you watch are Twitch live streams, or perhaps you listen solely to the B-sides of Aqua. Is that interesting? Without a doubt. Who doesn't want the beauty of Dr. Jones to live on forever? But it's solitary. Culture is group sex, and right now we're kind of culturing ourselves. See, culture is so dead that people have started replacing the word culture with the word vibe. Summer is a vibe. My haircut is a vibe. This video is a definite vibe. But unlike a culture which has values and hierarchies, a vibe is a kind of hard thing to pin down. It's a word so lazy it gives up halfway. But don't ruin the vibe. Good vibes only. And hey, share the vibe via social media. I can't tell you how useful it was during Melbourne's lockdown to have so many people rant on Facebook and Instagram, sending positive vibes, Melbourne. God, I was drowning in so many good vibes. I might actually have diabetes. Finally, let me just say that the people who wax lyrical about the wonders of culture are usually privileged white twits with none of their own. They're the kind of elitist pedants who think it's fun to correct people's grammar online or let you know that that phrase you just used was actually from a Shakespeare play before they recite the whole boring thing to you. And if pop culture is now largely keeping us up to date on Rebel Wilson's year of health or giving Ryan Murphy more legendary character actresses legacies to ruin, I think we can all agree we're done here. Now, I know I sound harsh, but again, I'm not a monster. I am not some fly-eating toad monster. I'm just like you. I'm an artist. Oh, cut before that.
Parents, teachers, students, adjudicators. I will be arguing for the negative team, that culture should not be cancelled. This is because culture is good and cancelling it would therefore be bad. In my speech, I will be focusing on a number of examples where culture is good and therefore cancelling of the culture good would be a bad result, therefore. I am convinced that this compelling argument will convince you, the adjudicators, and my team will win what I assume is a cash prize. What? What do you mean there's no prize? Why am I... The Oxford English Dictionary defines cancel as void, to annul, to call off. And culture as bacteria or cells grown for medical or scientific use or the process of growing them. So I think it's pretty clear culture shouldn't be cancelled. For example, currently we are in a global pandemic caused by a virus. Right now, the scientists are hard at work in their minds or whatever. Probably because of science, we can deduce that the scientists are probably using cultures to culture a culture, and that is probably a pretty important part of the vaccine science that they're doing, probably. I don't know, but I do reckon that there's... Anyway, I think we can all agree, except unless you're an anti-vaxxer, probably. Okay, most of us can agree that a vaccine is probably a good thing, right?
So, cancelling the culture that the scientists are using to find a vaccine would be a bad thing. Duh!
Therefore, we should not cancel culture. I rest my case. But if you still need more convincing, let's take a step out of the science labs and over to the food tech building. Here we can see that culture is involved in processes such as sourdough, yogurt, and beer.
And who wants to live in a world without beer? Not me!
So without culture, we wouldn't have bread or vaccines, and the only person who doesn't like those things is Pete Evans, who ironically has recently been cancelled. So in conclusion, culture shouldn't be cancelled. Because my grandfather used to have a shirt that said, beer is the answer. What was the question? And so, to the question, should culture be cancelled? I say the answer is beer. And also kombucha, technically, which is gross, and if it were up to me, would be cancelled. But it does have a mother, and cancelling it, technically, would be murder. So, can't argue with that. Thank you.
Good evening, good afternoon, good evening. Well, good evening. My name is Stuart Dolben, and and 6:15 is kind of like like a late afternoon. So good evening. Well, good afternoon. I mean, well, that really kind of depends on if you think the time between 6:15 and 7:15 p.m. on a Tuesday is is either late afternoon or in fact an evening. So, well, I mean, that really kind of depends on your definition, doesn't it? The official stance of this particular time that this debate is on is as follows. Oxford English Dictionary describes an afternoon as the period of time from 12 o'clock in the middle of the day until about 6 o'clock in the evening. You see, you think, well, 6:15 is by definition an evening, and you'd be technically correct by following that Oxford English Dictionary definition, but perhaps incorrect. If you would please refer to the Oxford English Dictionary definition of evening. The part of the day between the afternoon and the time you go to bed. When do you go to bed? When do I go to bed? And what does that mean for us? Both individually and collectively speaking. And who is correct and who isn't. But more on that later. Maybe. I don't know. Who cares? I'm not sure. Are you? What is culture? Delicious. Where was I? Ah, yes. What is culture? Well, that's a great question. It is where we're from. It is what we say, it's how we say it. It is language, it is land. It is individuality, it's where we are born. It's how we dance, how we move, how we look, how we dress, how we eat, what we drink, how we react. It is how we express ourselves and how we present ourselves. It's fashion. It's music, it's dance. It is arts. And really, who cares about any of that? I mean, our government definitely doesn't. Unless someone can somehow manipulate the notion of mateship to steer well clear of tackling any real meaningful social issues. But no, the chairman of Australia Post has to resign effective immediately for buying those Cartier watches for her staff after they did such a great job. When really, that objection was used by the Liberal government as a means to whitewash the fact that that particular party and government in New South Wales and federally are being investigated and is embroiled in a very significant and concerning corruption scandal. But no, ScoMo is against those Cartier watch gifts, so he must be against corruption. Blah, 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 blah. Boring and bad. Culture. Come on. Who cares? They'll all get away with it all anyways. So why not just stop caring? Stop caring about where we're from, how we say things, how we do things. Make it all the same. One word, one culture, one world. So we can celebrate our similarities rather than seek out and discriminate against our differences. Passports? Get rid of them. Everyone has a phone. Track people using Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi they connect to. You like stamps? You like stamps on your passport? Hell, get an app. Get an app for those, make a passport stamp app. The land, get rid of the borders so we can all come from one place. Earth. A former colleague and friend of mine, Greg Larson, once posed this particular notion to his followers in an online forum known as Twitter. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, "We have never really given communism a chance. Like, we only really tried it like 5 or 6 times. Whereas, that's quite minuscule in comparison to, say, the number of chances democracy and monarchies have had to succeed over the years, over the generations. And to say that human nature gets in the way, well, that's just a poor justification for complete annihilation from the US to protect their own ideals and income streams. Just make everyone the same. Who cares?" And the whole notion of political correctness, being PC, or being afraid of not being PC, or being called out for not being PC or for being PC, well, I'm here to tell you that the problem and anxiety will disappear entirely and immediately, because how can political correctness exist when everyone is correct? Which brings me back to my original question. Is 6:15 p.m. the afternoon or the evening? How about we just call it what it is? A debate happening between 6:15 p.m. and 7:15 p.m. on a Tuesday for a centre that is very keen on cars that consist of an indefinite number of wheels. That's what it is, and that's what it should be. I've been Stuart Dolman. Have an adequate remainder of this Tuesday.
Let's just get in here. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Welcome. My name is Evelyn Araluen and I'm your wine aunt. I'm coming to you from a cupboard under the stairs in the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri and Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. Their sovereignty and custodianship of this land has protected this place since time immemorial, and as a guest on this country, it's important for me to take every opportunity to remind myself to respect and honour their care for this place. I'm addressing you today to discuss whether culture should be cancelled and to appease my ongoing need for public affirmation of my existence. After 8 months of social distancing, I'm not entirely sure of it myself, and as such, any and all opinions expressed in this cupboard should not be considered reliable, intelligent, or free from the potential for harm if any instructions or advice are followed personally. I started wearing pyjamas in April and telling people it was loungewear. Do not trust me. So, to consider this debate, we must first approach the question of what it is we mean by cancel culture, and further, if any definitions even matter anymore in these end times. For some, culture manifests in stupidly minuscule portions of pâté and caviar, artfully decorated on an ugly plate in a tastefully under-decorated gallery or foyer. For others, culture is a broad metaphor of ethno-nationalist fantasies cooked up on Reddit. For some, such as myself, it's a daily lived experience which links individuals and communities to their homes, and rich histories which connects them to place and identity through geographically and socially specific practices. For some, it's yogurt. I think wine there's a correlation somewhere between wine and culture. Maybe not when I drink it. Pierre Bourdieu has a book on culture called Distinction, if any of you want to do your homework, but I prefer my theorists to have a little bit of skin in the game.
Frantz Fanon, psychiatrist, political theorist and decolonial revolutionary, wrote in 1961 that struggle is the site of national culture and that the overthrowing of colonial domination in pursuit of liberation necessitates a national terrain for the reclamation and regrowth of the culture denied to the oppressed. Liberation, dignity and a voice in broader networks of international solidarities rests on what Fanon describes as the most essential value for the colonized, the land which will bring them bread. Get that bread, get that head, then leave. Yeah, peace out. Yeah, writes TikTok sensation Beat King and Houston artist Queendom Come. Here we see the fundamental movement from the overthrowing of capitalist oppression and exploitation by the agents of imperial power towards the reclamation of indigenous resources and culture, followed by the decolonization of that society. It is only through revolution and struggle that the native subject will achieve peace. Yeah. So what does this have to do with cancel culture and this question of should culture be cancelled? As disempowered and dispossessed peoples, we must take whatever resources we have to disempower the elites, pursuing conscientism in both local and international networks. It's hard to buy guillotines, and it's very hard to maintain them in 2020, while Bunnings has been closed for most of the year. But you know what's free? Tweeting. Too free, probably, when I consider some of the stuff I've seen. While the public flagellation ritual of cancellation is for some marginalised communities the only available tool to call for accountability and justice in the deplatforming of agents of harm and further oppression, we mustn't fully conflate cancelling with the kinds of harm done to those communities. Of course, there are structures of performativity and complete exaggeration to some seeking vengeance on people they don't like, and as a response to mistakes or moments of genuine unintentional ignorance is not always proportionate to the fault itself. But that caveat is not in itself a good enough reason to dismiss cancel culture in its entirety for one very important reason. It's because I haven't been cancelled yet, and God knows I have been trying. For me, the desire to be cancelled functions something like Freud's death drive. I long for the moment I imagine that after that initial shock, I'll be greeted by a sensation of release, the peace described by Beat King and Queendom Come, the decolonial utopia envisioned by Fanon. The point in which my reputation and all expectations of me will be so far beyond redemption that there'll be nothing left for me to do other than relax into oblivion. No one will care if I wear pajamas to legitimate public functions or if I continue to listen to Lana Del Rey, even though I very much should not do that. You see, having grown up with a truly chaotic personality type, this isn't a facade. Gaining any form of platform or prominence has always been a very bad idea. My best hope to live a life of normalcy, of peace, would probably have been as a mumbling spinster in some ungrateful nephew's attic, or maybe if I got a podcast talking uncharacteristically about a show that I watched that nobody really cares that I watched. Instead, I chose whatever career it is that I actually do, somewhere in that vague constellation between poetry, editing, and research, and no one actually knows if I'm still enrolled in my PhD. I've been a danger to society since I was very young, and my crimes have only increased in their violence and subtlety. The sheer power I wield sometimes is actually frightening to me. My partner hasn't felt comfortable in 5 years. Even my dog doesn't trust me, and she very much should not. I'm using her to distract my parents from my childlessness, which itself my mother would cancel me over. But don't worry, if you play Vidya Rajan's cancellation game, you can cancel your own mum, and it all comes full circle. There isn't time for me to detail my sins in this video, and if there was a point, I've decided that it doesn't really matter anymore. It's kind of superfluous to the double bind of cancel culture that we all know at a base level is going to be what kills us all. In order to wield the power to cancel, we must also hold the potential. We must acknowledge that we will be cancelled ourselves. I consider this not a threat but a reassurance. May society sleep easier knowing that someday I might be stopped. So should we cancel culture? I don't really know. Does it matter? Does anything matter? Am I legitimately wearing pajamas? Yes. Do with that what you will. Peace.
Hi viewers, I'm Moira Finucane, and I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. I want to acknowledge elders past, present and yet to come, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people all over this beautiful country of ours, which always was and always will be sovereignty unceded. Some of you may know me. Some of you may have been living under a rock. That's okay. That's what we're here for today, to find out more. The Age has called me a national treasure. Voyage in France has called me exquisitely, sumptuously demented. La Nation in Argentina has said I am as unclassifiable as I am talented. They've called me the Queen of Burlesque. They've called me the Queen of Cabaret Macabre. But this year, I reckon you should call me the Queen of Cancel. I think I've cancelled more things this year than you've had hot meals. I have cancelled major shows in Denmark, the USA, Antarctica, Tennant Creek, Kalkarinji, Bruthen, all over regional Victoria, all over Australia, from Fitzroy to Portland. You get the picture. So, it was no surprise to me when the Wheeler Centre contacted me and asked me to contribute my thoughts on cancel culture. Now, my understanding is that what I contribute today will go into a working party and going forward, as they say in the corporate sector, will form part of a list for 2020's actions. So look, here goes. I have limited time, so I'm just going to hop right to it. I'm going to go back to retrospectively cancel a few things first, if that's okay. I would like to cancel a few things from my teenage years. I'd like to cancel the time I was riding down the beach in a beautiful green and white dress on my deadly treadly, which was bright purple, and this line of guys just blocked the road, and I was really frightened and they wouldn't let me pass. I'd like to cancel the time that one of my teachers humiliated me in front of all the boys in my class. I think just to make himself more popular. I'd like to cancel the time that another one of my teachers closed his office door behind me and told me how good I looked in shorts, not like those mothers that wear see-through tops these days that kind of just say, reach out and grab me. I've never seen a see-through top like that, but I'd really like to cancel those kind of attitudes towards teenage girls. I'd also like to cancel the time that when I was 19, not the actual time when I was 19, I was asked to sit on Western Australia's first State Conservation Strategy Committee, and I was representing the West Australian Conservation Council. It was a moment, viewers, when I was incredibly proud and I was really nervous, but I knew I had a grown-up opportunity to contribute to conservation in Australia. Anyway, I sat down and I was asked by 3 older delegates to make them cups of tea, and I was asked by countless people. Well, I wasn't asked for anything. I was just called girl. So that undermined my confidence. I'd quite like to cancel that. A few years before that, I went out to a party and it became really late and this boy tried to kiss me and I got into a car to get away from him and I slammed the door on him. Unfortunately, I slammed both his thumb and his finger in the door locking mechanism and I couldn't get the door open, and he was incredibly upset and crying and screaming and in pain, and I just couldn't get the door open, and eventually I got the door open, and then some other boys challenged him to a fight at the PNC, Police and Citizens, and then when everybody disbanded and it was an incredibly upsetting night, They all turned and blamed me for leading him on. Anyway, that's retrospective stuff, and I think we should just move ahead to today's problems. I'd like to talk about when people use matters of oppression as kind of palate cleansers or conversation spritzers over dinner, and like say family violence or child brides or gender violence. And you, that's me in this story, have had 10 years work in the area of gender violence, and you've also got quite a lot of skin in the game, and you really passionately care about it. So that's my position, and their position is that they've had 6 glasses of wine, and we've both got opinions, so let's just throw them down on the table together and kind of, get into it. I'd really like to cancel every single dinner party like that I've had, and there's been quite a lot of them. I'd also like to cancel snobbery. I know it seems really minor, petty and egregious, but if you've sat through the kinds of meetings that I've sat through where arts aficionados who are wearing more on their body in one day than I earn in 1 year and are correcting you on the pronunciation of a dead artist who made almost no money in his life and I understand died in poverty, and they're going, no more, it's not Van Gogh, it's actually Van Gogh or Van Gogh or Van Gogh. I'd like to cancel those kinds of meetings. I'm going to stop being petty now because I know I only have a short period of time. So my big one of them anyway, is I want to cancel deaths in custody. I want to cancel the national shame that has seen at least 434 Indigenous Australians lose their lives to deaths in custody since the Royal Commission into deaths in custody in 1991, and no one has ever been convicted. Now, if I walked down the street and say killed 434 people and it was an accident maybe, or maybe it wasn't, who's to know, I reckon there'd be a consequence. What do you reckon? I'd really like to cancel that, and I would, while I'm at it, like to cancel the kind of consultation that sends big business into tiny communities on, say, an issue like fracking that is happening right now in the Northern Territory and tears community apart, while big business and consultants listen to some and not others, and sow dissension and grief and greed and spite, and then walk away, leaving oppressed communities to try to heal and fight fracking. And yes, you should join Seed Mob. Just look it up as soon as this debate's finished. If one good thing comes out of this debate, it's you joining Seed Mob. They are an amazing bunch of young Indigenous people working to fight fracking, working to save country and culture. For all of us, where's the downside, Seed Mob? Remember it. I'd also like to cancel media monopolies and bring Rupert Murdoch to heel so that he can't prey on people's fears and sow division and dissent during a motherfucking pandemic. And while I am at it, why not cancel a few other things fueled by greed, dominance, tradition and oppression? Let's cancel child trafficking. Let's cancel family violence. Let's cancel female genital mutilation. Let's cancel the constant belittling, harassment and exploitation of women in the workplace whilst paying them less. I mean, that is not fair and not fair. Let's cancel it. Hey, let's cancel child brides. Let's cancel climate change. I would really like to cancel climate change. Can you imagine? I know that this is a debate about culture, but if you think that culture and climate change aren't connected, then you have never opened a reputable scientific journal. I would like to cancel men owning religion. I am a deeply spiritual person, and that is my right. Who thought that men owning religion was a good idea? It's not a good idea. Cancel it. I'd like to cancel my subscription to VPN. I'd like to cancel Bix that keeps popping up on my phone all the time, but I seriously don't know how to. So I sent this list. It's not comprehensive. Some of it's petty, some of it's egregious. Nonetheless, I sent a list, I put it in an envelope, and I sent it with a thank you card to the Wheeler Centre. And I felt kind of good. In the middle of a pandemic, I felt like I really achieved something. And then this morning, I got a phone call. that told me that this is a debate, not a list of things that will be acted as part of a task force in 2021, which I understood. And I thought, are you fucking kidding me? I've been through a year of lockdown. I thought this was a silver lining. Come on. But you know what? I am not giving up. I am renowned for not giving up. I am renowned for never taking no for an answer. So I sat down and I thought, Moira, just look it up yourself. So I looked up cancel and I looked up culture in the dictionary. And the thing about cancel is when a force meets an equal and opposite force, there can be a cancellation, so long as those forces are acting on the same body. Say that same body is oppression. Say that same body is family violence. It's different from Newton's third law, trust me. To cancel is to neutralize or negate the force or effect of another. And culture, that's where you and I live. Right here, right now. We are all part of it. So if there are things you want to cancel, my friends, rise up with a force. Show an alternative. Show a power. Resist. Act. Hope. Folks in power who feel cancelled are simply feeling that force. In 2020, this year, the Aninu people cancelled the climbing of Uluru against a huge force of capitalism, colonialism, ignorance, entitlement, and racism. The Commonwealth Franchise Act of 1902 cancelled Australian men's right to exclusively decide the future of our country. And in 1967, over 90% of our nation voted by referendum to cancel the exclusion of Indigenous people from the Constitution. The year before that, in 1966, when the Gurindji people cancelled their unpaid work schedule and walked off Wave Hill. In 2020, when Lydia Thorpe walked into Parliament with her message stick. When Julia Gillard before her gave her now famous "I will not be lectured to," a speech that was such a spray, I reckon it's still in the carpet of Parliament House, giving good women like Lydia just a little lift in their everyday activities. When people march and petition and front up and stand beside, to rise up, to show the power, to change the world.
Hi everyone. You've likely heard a lot of noise tonight. Words, arguments, sounds, the hum of your own head, desperately trying to figure out which side of this debate to land on in case you get it wrong and then you yourself are cancelled. Now, the proposition of the opposition that culture should be cancelled can seem tempting. It's easy to look at the ecosystem of the arts and all the grants you didn't get and say, burn it all down. It's easy too to maybe lean into the idea that the horrors of cancel culture, whatever that term means, somehow point to a deeper rot in culture itself. Sure, those propositions sound smart, like a non-French person saying croissant the French way. But much like that person, when you scratch at them deeper, what you find is hollow and quite irritating and frankly something you don't want to be around. Like my good friend, acquaintance, Mahatma Gandhi once said to me, be the change you want to be in the culture and in the cancel culture. By which he meant, cancelling culture is specious and cancelling cancel culture doubly so, and not just because that the latter phrase has the word cancel twice, but because culture is not a fixed thing. It is fluxive and it is made of individuals like you and me who propel systems. We need to empower ourselves to take charge of culture and not treat it like this straw man villain. I know you're wondering, how do I have such certainty and clarity about this? And it's because I do a loving cancellation meditation every day, sometimes twice a day when it's awards season. And I want to invite you now to do it as well and to follow along and to achieve the peace that I am so clearly radiating. Before we begin, find yourself a private space where you are alone. This is a loving cancellation meditation. It may seem as if it is led by me, but truly it is led by you. The kingdom of cancellation is within. Start by placing yourself in a comfortable position or an uncomfortable position if you wish. Positionality? No, the monkey mind, it wanders. There is no correct position in this space. Select a position, it does not matter. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Keep doing that. That is the pace we will try to keep. Yet it may change. We can only respond to the moment in front of us after all. Where are you in relation to the past? They say it is better to have loved and been cancelled than to never have loved at all. Where are you in relation to the future? The future, a vast desert, a blood sun rises, the wind howls, it is time for the pack to move, the meat still whole in their belly, the lips sting with bile, another cancellation on the morrow, and another on the morrow after that. But the present is a gift, like a box of chocolates, ethically or not ethically sourced, it doesn't matter. And when it is opened, perhaps it is a box of chocolates, or perhaps it is several worms who have gained sentience somehow and are disguised as chocolates, and they are disdainful of you, and not the universal you, but the specific you opening that box, perhaps. What rough beast crouches towards Bethlehem to be cancelled? And on the exhale, let us think now of the cancelled, not the cancelled check or the cancelled date or the cancelled subscription, Disney Plus, I must remember to do that. But the cancelled people, yes, the people. Who comes to mind when you think of the cancelled now? Celebrities, stars, gassy bodies who rule us from above. You may think on them if you wish. Or for this meditation, you may move closer to home, to the suburbs, to family, to friends, to work, to your own tiny little spaces, closer and closer to the domestic as a house cat, incidentally a terrible creature, dangerous to the environment, a murderer of local wildlife wherever it is found, the domestic house cat. It is cancelled. And yet, meow meow, we love them, do we not? Can we find in this a lesson? Not for me to say. And as you think now of those cancelled near or far, cat or star, where does that feeling sit in your body? Where does it hold its power? Today I feel it in my right rib, and under that rib, anger, and under that anger, fear, and under that fear, sadness, and under that, my liver, I hope, if I remember my anatomy correctly. Concentrate on wherever that spot is in your body and let the feeling simply dissolve. Dissolution is merely the feeling of letting go of its power over you. It does not have to mean forgiveness or justice, because those are big concepts, and my head, I have known since my childhood, is quite small. My sister made a lot of fun of me. I still drown in hats. I don't want to talk about it. And as you've now done for others, extend the loving cancellation to yourself. For ask not for whom the bell cancels, it cancels for thee, that rough beast, it you. And slowly develop an awareness of the thing you said, or the word you used, or the people you supported who you shouldn't have, or the idea or belief that you secretly still have. In the dead of the night, you know you have it as you sit in your hole, your eyes gleaming to yourself in the knowledge of your innate need to perhaps take care of yourself above all others, perhaps, yes, to be grime as you are and grist as you are, and a squelch of a being, that thing you said, that photo you took, the party you went to, the word you used, the belief you you held as a child, as a teen, or right now or tomorrow, the thing for which you know you could be cancelled in your heart of hearts, and the person who could do it. Take a moment to think of those things and whisper out loud to yourself the thing you could be cancelled for. And as you do that, let it also dissolve into nothing, and as it dissolves, thank yourself for cancelling yourself as you just did before you were cancelled, for taking the time to remember what you did or who holds that power to cancel you, and to simply dissolve it and not care. For only those who care can be cancelled, and only you can truly cancel yourself. The kingdom is within. And repeat and join the mantra if you wish. May I be cancelled before I am cancelled. May I be cancelled before I am cancelled. May I be cancelled before I am cancelled.
Okay, so I've been advised that I have to advise you, like, terms and conditions apply, and like when I said only you can truly cancel yourself, like if you're not somebody who's like incredibly powerful or like rich or like, you know, white or belong to a dominant culture, or have created work that other people just like simply really love and like would rather like either unshit than stop engaging with, or like are very hot, or like all of those things at once, quite often, then you're fine, and you can cancel yourself, and you can believe this, but like otherwise you're probably a bit fucked. But enjoy the meditation.
Cancelled before I am cancelled. Only those who care can be cancelled. Only you can truly cancel yourself. All that is cancelled melts into air.
Hello, welcome back. We have a very clear winner, and that winner is to just
Not
cancel culture.
But to be honest, I don't really have a side anymore.
Were they even sides? Wait, is it because the question sets up
a false binary without establishing any distinct parameters for its argument? And the entire model of a debate itself is based on the idea that one side is able to prove its argument in concrete terms, thus prioritizing the dominant ideology and or the loudest voice, and or the voice that believes its justifications are universal, despite the fact that they may not be universal.
So who wins?
I don't know.
Should we cancel this?
Oh, we should cancel all debate. We should cancel debate.
The winner is cancelling debate. We hope you enjoyed joining us on this wild ride of thoughtful, in-depth, cohesive, comprehensive argument, and we hope you had a time. See you next time.
There will be no next time because we've
debates are
cancelled
cancelled.
all debates.
Good night.
Good
Good night. Good night.
See you.
Good night.
Visit wheelercentre.com for the best in books, writing and ideas from Melbourne, Australia and the world.